is Daf Chaf Ches. The last thing we learned was an argument as to whether shechting a bird is from the Torah, from the Rabbanon, and Rebbe said that it's Torah, and he learns from the pasuk where it says "V'zavachti you should shecht kasher tzivi sicha," like I once instructed you. Traces are fascinating traces there. I'm just going to tell you traces because it's not a normal trace. It's more like a Rav with Darshans. He says the word kasher is the following, says Tesis. The word kasher, aleph is by a bird you need only one siman. Shin is shenayim. By a behemoth you need two simanim. Reish is rubai. That roiv siman is enough. And then he says if you read it backwards, which is reish shin aleph chaf, is roiv shenayim. Echad is kamayu. If you do the roiv of the two simanim by behemoth and the one siman by bird is kamayu. Fascinating Tesis. Anyhow, we're up to the order by the two dots, about 15 lines at the top of the page. So one siman by a bird and two by a behemoth. Now remember, there's the esophagus and the trachea. When we say one siman, which siman are we talking about? Says what we learned. Rav Nachman says, "Oy veishit, oy kana." It makes no difference which is that one siman. If you cut through the esophagus or you cut through the trachea, either one. Rav Ada bar Abba says, "Veishit, only the esophagus." V'loy kana. You know, if you go through one siman of the esophagus, it kills the bird straight away. You go through one siman, just the trachea, it doesn't kill it straight away. So it's not considered a good shchita, just the kana, just the trachea. You have to cut through the trachea together with the esophagus. But esophagus on its own, or even the roiv, is enough. And then more explains. One, echad kodu, I don't care which one. Dafke the esophagus. My echad, we find sometimes when it says echad is miyuchad, the best one. Like we're going to find in chitas now that each nasi brought the carbon and said the echad is miyuchad shebe edrei, brought the best animal that they have in his flock. So that's a machlekes. Now we're going to ask a series of questions on Rav Nachman, and then followed by a series of questions on Nachman on Rabbi. Makes it first on Rav Nachman. So we're up to the Chav Ches Amar Aleph, and we're learning when you shech through one siman by a bird, doesn't matter which one it is. Rav Nachman says doesn't, and Rav Abba says dafka through the esophagus kills them, but not through the trachea. That's not enough. So now we're up to the Gemara is asking questions on that. That's what we're up to. First one line is Mesa, right in the beginning, right in the middle of the page. Mesa, last question on Nachman, it says, I don't care which one you shecht, either the esophagus or the trachea, it's enough for a bird. It says in the Brais Shochat Eshavation, what happened? You shechted the esophagus, and suddenly slipped out. Remember, this is like Ikur. Suddenly the trachea slipped out of its place. We don't care. Why? Because the moment you finished shechting through the esophagus, it's already a kosher to the bird. So what happens afterwards doesn't matter. Straight. But if the other way around, first the trachea was pulled out of its place, so the bird became treif, and then then you shechted the esophagus, so the bird's already treif. Like we learned before by Malika. If you went through the back and the roiv basar, the bird's already treif, it can't help Malika. So when you do through the back, you didn't do through the roiv basar. Same thing over here. What about if shachet is haveshet, you shechted the esophagus, and then you found that this was removed, but you don't know when that happened. When did it happen? Did it make a treif or not? Happened. Every animal, every bird is an avela or even a chai until you remove it, until you shecht it. If you don't know the shchita was a proper shchita, how can you say it's kosher? Now, what's our eye from this brisa? The ilu shchita begageres like tani doesn't give you an instance where what happened? You shechted the gageres and the esophagus was pulled out. The only example he gives you, you shechted the esophagus. Is that when it comes to birds and one siman, which siman is it the one that you have to shecht? The veishit. But should the gageres, the one said no ayah at all. You know why? Should the gageres avilish tamut? We're looking for a case where one siman you shechted and one fell out. Usually, which one is easy to fall out? The trachea. The esophagus is much firmer and doesn't really fall out, so the metzias wouldn't be. Basically, we're learning right now, machlekes say by one siman by a bird. Rav Nachman says it doesn't matter which siman it is that you cut. If you cut through one siman is enough. And according to Rav Avada, no, only if you shechted the esophagus, because that will kill the bird straight away. If you shecht through the trachea, it doesn't really kill the bird straight away, and therefore it's not really a shchita. So we're asking a series of questions. Rav Nachman says either or, and we ask a question from a Brais that gives only one example. If you shechted through the esophagus, doesn't give an example. You shechted the trachea. Then what it says, because that particular instance It's not a Matthias shechting through the trachea and have the esophagus pulled out by itself. Tashma, next question on Rab Nachman. You say either or. We learn shachat shnei chatzoy simonim ba'oif. If you shechted just half of a simon, even both of them, it is possible because you have to shech through a roiv, majority of a simon. They ain't sort of blame behema, and by behema surely if you shechted through half. It's nothing because it's the animal's still alive. It's only if you shechted more than half roiv, that becomes possible. Comes along and says, but oif, when it comes to a bird, ad yishchet es haveshet, you have to shech through not only the veshet but also the viridian, all the nerves around the arteries and the veins. So what do we see from here again? That the only thing you have to shech is the veshet, and I'm not arguing, by a bird which simon you have to shech. So it seems everyone agrees that when we say one simon, it means a veshet, not like Rav Nachman says oy kana oy veshet. You have a choice. You know why we mentioned Veshet? Because he wanted to say also the Veridin. And where are all these Veridin? Right next to the Veshet. That's where they're sitting. So the Veshet, some live Veridin, but really the Kana as well. But the Kana is far from the Veridin. Tashma coming here. Okay, Shachat, you shechted Chatzi Gargeres. You shechted half of a Gargeres, half of the trachea, the Shah. Now we learned one of the 5 psulim is Shia. She is if you paused long enough to be able to shecht an animal, shecht a bird, whatever you're doing, if you're long enough to shecht, then you broke up the shchita and it is possible. So it says as follows. Shachat chatzi gageres, we shechted half of a trachea, v'shah kidei. Now, remember, if you shechted only half of a half, it's not yet shchita. When does shchita kick in? Only when you do roiv. So if you shechted a half of a kana, it's not treif. It's you didn't start the shchita yet. So there's no din of Shia. Shia is you started the Shchita already and you paused. But over here, because you only went halfway, Shchita doesn't start until we learned before. If a goy shechted half and then he finished it, it's all right because the first half is not called Shchita. So there's no din of Shia here. So Shachat, but it says clearly here, what are we talking about? The Gargeres. A problem with Rabada said the only time it's Shchita is if you shech through the esophagus. Here we're talking about the trachea, the kana, and we're talking about Shchita. My lab, I'm talking about a bird. My gomer gageres. That what? That you didn't, and when you complete the gageres is a good shchita. Clearly, that Nachman is right. That you can shech through the kana. It's good enough. So the Gemara, who would say bird here? So Rabbi answers, "Loi behema." We're talking about a behema, and a behema. Everyone agrees you need 2 simonim. So when he says a gomer, it means you finish the 2 simonim. Because by a bird you only need 1 simon. So if it says gomra by a bird, you think it means whatever simon you're working on, you finish that one, and you have a problem because we're talking about gageres. We're talking about a behema. But behema, the only way you can go a behema is you go through both simonim. So it's nothing to do with me. Behema, my gomra shchita kula. You finish the entire shchita. Toshma, another question about how hayachatze kana pogum. When he came, there was already cut half of a kana. It's not treifet because and stachit not treifet. But how you see all of kosher, all you did was a shchita, a drop, but that drop now made it roiv. You finished it, shchitasik sheda. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about the kana, we're talking about the trachea. And but pashas, we do only have 1 simon by a bird. So my lab ba'if, my gomer the kana. Kasha Lavado, he says he can't shechting kana doesn't know anything. Tell him out again. Who said we're talking about a bird? Talking about a behema. And when he says gomer, he means you finish the entire shchita of the behema. You start over the trachea because by esophagus, by a veshet, a nekev mashu makes a treif. If you remember your smicha, by a veshet, by a reya, by a lung, the slightest hole, a puncture makes it possible.
If it's a curve, if it's minimum.
We'll see. Yeah, we have 2 items if it goes. Well, yeah, okay. We'll talk about all that as we go through the Gemara. But by a kana, it has to be what do you call it? More than chatzi to be treif. So if you did over here, it was a half pogum, not treif yet. So if you finished the shchita, but my behema, that rest of the a little bit more of the kana, and then you did the rave of the veshet kasha. Well, my gomer the veshet. Toshma coming here. Another kasha. It says now this price is going to be problematic. It says Kates at Moilkin. How do you do Malik and Chatazayv? Remember the children of Oilazayv and a Chatazayv. Oilazayv you cut through both some money because you have to separate the head. By a Chatazayv, it says Lo Yavdil. So you only do 1 simon and you don't want to separate the head. So it says, how do you do Malik and Chatazayv? Choitich Shedra Mafrekes. You go through the Shedra and the Mafrek in the back. Below Reiv Basar. Because if you were to break in through Rav Basa before you got to the Samanim, you already matzif the bird, can't go weiter. So below Rav Basa. Had Shemagia live they should oilakana. Claude the Brisa says you have a choice. One simon. And then you go through that's one simon and Basar. Clearly from the Brisa, you have a choice. But if it would be an oiler bird, then Shnayim, you have to go through both money more Shnayim, because we want you to be mavdul the head. To you to the bottom to you. If anyone mahavila, so what's the bottom line? You want to ask mahavila? Kedamna, we just said to yufta, and what are you asking mahavila? What's the bottom line? I told you, we just repudiated Zavada. Someone said no, because maybe Malika is different. Why? The whole part of shchita is to kill the bird or the animal as quickly as possible, as painless as possible, and the blood should flow out. But when you do a malika, you break through the back. Once you broke through the back, you already weakened the whole bird. So maybe a malika bird, one simon is enough. I don't care if it's a kana or the vesha to kill the bird because you already broke through the back. But a normal bird, when you go through the front, maybe you have to dafka go through the vesha. So it's not really a kasha and avada. So what's the bottom line by ordinary bird? Is a nachman right or avada? Says the Gemara. We're coming here. Now, the couch could have in the house of Rava also was brought into Rava's place. Keep a masmes kuyodom, and the entire neck was full of blood, and they had no idea what it was. And they don't know. According to Rashi, the suffix was over here, whether there was already a hole there existing before or not. According to Taisa, the suffix is whether it was a drusa or not, a darsa. And how do you check? It's full of blood there already. How do you check? Now, the problem with the Vesha is, the way Rashi learns, it's all red on the outside. So what are you going to check? It's all red anyway. How are you going to know whether there was a hole there or not? Everything, and because there's a hole, the blood might have filled the hole, and you can't really tell because the whole thing is red. But if you turn it inside out, the inside is white. And then you can right away see if there's a blood clot, there's a blood filling a hole or not. So the Keirava says, and Tay says the same thing, but Tay disagrees. He says you could check a puncture in a veshet, even though it's red, it looks different. We're talking about here Darusa, Darsa. If it's Darsa, it makes it very, very red. And that color red, you can't tell the difference. A color, not a blood thing. So anyhow, came down to Rava, came in Masmas, the whole thing, the neck was full of blood. Oh my Rava, hey, what do we do? How do we do this? Nishchete, should we shecht the esophagus, and then we'll be baidikit? Over
the cup.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right through that puncture. How do you know? And maybe that puncture is what caused all the blood. Nivdike, let's check it first. Open up the esophagus. Rabba said, you can't check even you open the skin. It's all red. It's all red, and even though this is blood and that's the color red, it's the same shade. So maybe a blood fell into that puncture and blocked it up, and you can't tell. The only way you can check a vesha is the inside. The inside is white, and then you can see there's a little red in there. There's a hole there, and it's blood. Rabbi Yosef, his son, said to his father, let's shecht the trachea, so the bird now is kosher. Whatever you do afterwards doesn't matter. Yeah, and then first check the kana, make sure that there's no, and by kana a little hole doesn't matter. Remember, it has to be right, even you can tell. Let's first check the kana and make sure that that's intact, or at least there's no, it's not chatzi. The nishchete lekana, let's check the kana. The lichterei. So clearly, what do we see from here? That the bird, you can check the kana's kosher. Then turn around to the esophagus, turn it inside out. Leave the cake will be baidik, because there you can tell from the inside. So what's Rava's comment here? Hakim Yosef Bri. What nachas. My son Yosef is so smart. But treifas, he knows the laws of treifas. Either like Rabbi Yechon knows the laws of treifas, we'll see more later that Shmuel sent 13 wagons of shilas of treifas Rabbi Yechon. Or like Rabbi Yechon knows Kol Kula, my son is like him, at least in the laws of treifas. But what do you see from here? What did his son say? Check through the kana. It's good enough. Alma echad the kamar. Oy hi. We see the halach like Nachman. You have a choice. So anyway, Rabbi Yehuda said you have to shech the veridin. Now, why do you have to shech through the veridin? There's two ways of learning pshat. One way of learning pshat is that the veridin is part of the shchita. When it comes to by a bird, Rabbi Yehuda holds, it's not enough to shech through the esophagus. You got to also shech through the veridin to finish the shchita. The other way, so it's a din of shchita. The other way of learning is not do a shchita. It's to do with generally people when they would take the bird, they wouldn't cut the bird, it's so small. They would put the whole thing on a grill, and there's blood trapped in there. We need the blood to exit before you put it on the grill. So cutting the viridium is to remove that blood. Machlek is not which blood we're talking about here, but remove the blood of the viridium. Nothing to do with shchita. I might have committed if it's a din and shchita or if it's a din and dam. We'll see in more in a minute. So Amar Rav Chizda said, this din of viridium only applies to a bird, and why is that? Because when you grill a bird, you roast a bird, you roast the entire bird in one go. So how you can get the blood out? By an animal, you cut it into pieces and you salt it here. But here you put the whole bird on the barbecue. So what do? So we need the blood to exit first. So therefore, what do? You first have to shecht through the viridium. So a lot of the blood went out. When it comes to behema, the mintacha, ever, since you cut it up limb by limb, like tzadich. So the member, so what do we see from Rabbi Chizda? The time of Rabbi Yehuda Mishub Damu. It's not a din in shchita, it's a din in making sure that there's no blood. So but now we look in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, Achi Yishchit es Havaridin. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to shecht the viridium. Why shecht? Just take a puncture and puncture a hole. Because you're telling me not to do with shchita, to do with extracting the blood. Okay, so just puncture a hole. Why use the word shishchay? Ema achi yinak, give us a viridium. Say, why don't you just give us a viridium until he makes a hole? That's all we need to do. So when answers back, that's not a kasha. What he meant was achi yishchay. He meant achi yinkay b'shah shchita. Achi means at the same time you're shechting right away. Why right away? We will explain later on. Right away, the blood is still very warm. If the blood is warm, it sprouts everywhere. Once the blood cools down, it doesn't really flow well. So we want you to puncture. I don't give you a puncture shech, but at the time of shchita. Okay, Toshma coming here. V'ridin b'shchita, Rabbi Yehuda says that what you do v'ridin b'shchita. So clearly it says b'shchita. It sounds like you have to shecht again. And stigmata. Ein v'ridin so not with b'shach shchita. Rabbi Yehuda. No cash. Toshma coming here. Amlo Rabbi Yehuda ma'ach shelo who's v'ridin alois medam. Since the whole purpose is what? To remove the blood, mali b'shchita, mali shalei b'shchita. The Chacham said to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the difference if you do you have to shecht it? The whole Chacham actually asked Rabbi Yehuda, what's the point? Miklau, by saying that, it seems like Rabbi Yehuda was saying, no, you have to do it only shchita. I'm saying, why you need shchita? Just make a puncture, which means Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to actually shecht it. Miklau Yehuda saw b'shchita. That's what it sounds like. Otherwise, Moshe said again, no. Rav Chizda said this is what he said to him. Mali l'nokvan b'shashchita, mali l'nokvan shalei b'shashchita. It's not a din of shchita. Rabbi Yehuda also says you can puncture it. But the Chacham's argument is, why straight away? Wait 10 minutes. What's the rush? But who saw it? He holds b'shashchita osidam the chayim. While the shechting, the blood is warm, it'll flow. But shalei b'shashchita, when you're not time the shechting, osidam the karir, the blood won't flow. Boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah did not know about this whole Gemara of Chizos. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked the same question in his own right, whether it's a din of shchita or din of blood. But Rabbi Yirmiyah, the reading of Rabbi Yehuda, shah behen, daughters ben mao. Those things which disqualify shchita, if they say the same thing happened during shechting through all the arteries and veins, does it also pass disqualified or not? No, if you learn to din of shchita, then whatever laws apply to shchita apply to v'ridin. If you tell me not to do shchita, it's a din and taking out the blood, who cares? And he didn't know. So he asked that question. He didn't know about this whole sug we just had of Chizah. Amalei who saw this person told him, Hachi Amar Rabbi Lazar. Amalei say, Amalei who saw the little Rabbi Lazar, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yechon. Menachman b'koitzvein shadin. You don't even have to shecht it. Take a thorn, pierce it, and the blood will come out. Okay, no, the same idea as Rav Chizda. Tanya kavos Rav Chizda. Actually, look at Rav Chizda. Trachat shnei chatzoi simonim ba'oiv. If you shecht it of two simonim is probably, even though you had two simonim, all you need is one, but you did a half of each one. What's a half? Nothing. But you need to do majority. By behema, we actually do need two simonim. Surely, if you only did half, it's not kosher because you have to shecht through reiv. Rabbi Yehuda says, by oif, achi yishchait es haveshet. By oif, it's until you shecht through the veshet. The es havaridin, and then you also have to do separately the varidin.
With shchita, but not with the.
So we're saying that not. Jesus said that you have to do it at the time of shchita. So he means at the time of shchita. How does this exactly bring a strong raya to him? Well, how to see how is a strong raya to him? And I'll tell you why. Because he said it's only by a bird. If it's a din of shchita, l'chayda should also be by a behemoth as well. Why should it be a difference of bird and a behemoth? If it's a din of shchita, then it should be everywhere. If you tell me it's a din of dam, I understand, because behemoth you cut it up anyway in pieces, you'll salt it and you get rid of the blood. But mashenke by a bird, because you do the entire bird, how's the blood going to come out? So therefore, you have to shech through. The fact that he highlights how to be Echelon, the fact that he highlights a bird versus a behemoth tells us that Archiz is right. It has a din in the blood, not a din in shchita. A din in shchita would have been no difference in behemoth or ra'if. Now we have an interesting machlekes. Says about further chatzi echaba if itmar. An interesting argument. Rav says machze al machze kereiv. Half is like the majority. We'll see in a minute what the logic in that is. And Rav Kana said, no. Machze half and half. And the Eina Karev, Reiv means more than half. Rav said like this. Do you look at it from the going down from 100? Do you look at it going up? So Rav says, Machze Karev, Hochi, Amar Leirachman L'Moshe. This is what they told Moshe. Remember you said before, it's Allah Mashinai. Loita Shai Ruba. I don't want you to leave the majority attached. You only left half attached. So therefore, it's all right. In other words, you go from 100 down. So therefore, 50 comes right. And the Rav Kahana says, no, Machza Eine Karev Hocher Moshe. Schait in a positive way. Shech the majority. That's not majority. So now we're going to bring a few rayas, and Gemara will finally conclude that actually Rav and Avchiza, Rav and Avkana had not arguing at all about Amang, but something totally different. We'll see in a minute. Now we learned if you did a half of a one simon by a bird, which is all you need, or 1.5 simonim by a behemoth, because you need 2 simonim by a behemoth, shchita half is no good. Now, according to Rav, why are you puzzled? Rav says half is a rave. Yeah, but Max Hamata Grave. I might puzzle. He did rave. Answer the Gemara, you're right. It's a kosher shchita. Midrabanan. Rav said, I'll tell you, it's only midrabanan. Dil meloy osi lemevil palga. Palga is very difficult to be exactly half. So Chachamim never said, we don't like this idea of half. Make a majority so it's visible. It's clear that it's at least half. I'll bring another ayah. It says you have a kleicheres, and a kleicheres, if you want to, is tamei. How do you retire it? The only way you retire it is by breaking it. And it's a small part. So what happens? Now, if the majority of the oven is still intact, you then break it. That majority is still tummy. The smaller part is the lesser part. It becomes tired, but the bigger part is still sort of useful. It's right. It's not called utans. So what happened? Chokishnaim he's broken in half. They ain't shoving. And the 50-50, exactly half and half. Is shnei and tamei, and they're both tummy. Why they're both tummy? That while it's impossible. Is it possible to be exactly 50-50? And why is that? Because as the Taisa brings from Gemara, because they're not smooth. It's not like it's smooth and you can make 50-50. There's holes in there and there's cavities, and you have to include all that in the measurements, which is practically impossible. So what? One of them will be right, and one of them will be mit. Sounds like mir. Or after Letzamtzim, if you were able to make it 50-50, to hide it. They'll both be tight because neither of them is a rave. But according to Rav, half is more than a rave. I'm high tight zil hachi keruba. You Rav hold that half is the majority. So it comes along a papa says, "Oi, I'm gonna papa." Today, it's like a klotzka, she's saying it. Today, Ruba bechad monoleka. When you have a half, you can't have two majorities.
Too big a
Exactly, you can't have two. So therefore, in this case over here, there would be kosher because it's obviously you can't have two. The whole vart is that mech says correct, but you can't have two 51%. Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
The kids always get the two kids always get.
Each one gets a bigger half. Exactly. I was just.
Tracy wants to bring a raya from this whole sugya. Very interesting that the halach is that remember we had in sukkah and erevin. If it's possible, efshel tzamtzim or efshel tzamtzim, can you make it exactly half? Today with all the new technology, is something else. But with your eye, can you make exactly half? We don't break it in half. Dafke we break a majority, a bigger and a smaller. Oh, we dafke want a bigger and a smaller. Don't want half. That's right. Back to the mother touchback coming here. It says in the Braisa, "Tochet chatzi gageres." You shechted half a gageres. We had it before. Sorry, we had it before. You shechted half a gageres, and then v'shahabo you waited. Kidei. Now remember, it's not considered shchita yet. Because you did half. You waited kidei shchita acheres long enough to shecht another bird. V'gomra you complete shchita t'ksheder. Why is it kosher? Because you only did half of the trachea, and half a trachea is not called shchita yet. Remember, if it found it pogum, it's still right. As long as you made a little slit, and it's more than half. But according to Rav, half is majority, it's a rate treif. Beyond the matzah matzah karev, it's a relay to rate treif, according to Rav, because he says that half is like a majority. So that means majority of the kana, you already shechted, even though you only did half. It's like you did the majority. And if you're like, you did majority, so, and then you and then you had shia, you did the psul shia, it should have passed the bird. Says the Gemara, me, savre, behema. You think we're talking about a behema here, so therefore you're asking a question, you did half is like majority? We're talking about a bird. And Mela what? Is a manushach. If you hold half is majority, half is manushach. What's a manushach? If half is like majority, so you already shechted the bird. Remember, a bird, how many simonim do you need? Only one. And if you tell me that 50-50 is like you did the 51%, so the bird's already kosher. And who cares what you do afterwards? None of us. And he anyway, tell me that machsa is not like majority. So then what happens? So then you didn't do shchita yet. So there's no psul shia. Brilliant. So Tashma coming here. So therefore, this dinner machsa now we're limiting it to behemoth, not to a bird. To come in here, it says clearly chatzi kana pogum. If half the kana was already slit, we just had this just before. But hoisiv olav kosher, you made a slight slit a bit more. The gomra shchitasik sheda. Why? Because the first half doesn't count because it's not yet roiv. So it's not like you did shchitero. Because it's still kosher bird, you can still shecht. Now, but according to Rav, if you found pogum half means the majority. So it's a rei treif. We have mathematic roiv treif have it's rei treif. Problem.
Isn't a problem of Shia?
We don't forget about Shia. We don't even if you don't have to come on to Shia. It's a postal. It's a tray for bird already. You're talking about pogum. You didn't do the shchita. You came over. You found the bird pogum. It already had a defect that the trachea was cut. You know exactly. There was a slit there. So you tell me if it's half and half, you just slide this incision is kosher. But according to Rav, half and half is already majority, and majority with pogum treif. I don't have to come out this year. On my Rava says, okay, here we have, usually it's Abaye says something, Rava slugs him up. Here, Rava says something, Abaye slugs him up. Shiny li'inyan treifa. Here we're talking before about shchita. And Rav said if you shecht half and half, like you just majority. Here we're talking about you found a treif. Treif, we're not going to say it's like majority. You know why? Because to be treif, it has to be obvious. Has to be noticeable. Here it's not noticeable yet because it's only half and half. So it's not reiv hanidel leinaim. Family by doesn't make sense. But like called the keno kavachever, mother treifer. That sometimes we say the mashu mitzvah. That even a mashu by a veshet, by an esophagus, the slightest puncture makes a treif. By a lung, the slightest puncture makes a treif. Excuse me. And yet, yet, so in other words, it's so chomer. It's so machmer by treif. And yet, when the din is that what? That you need a roiv. It has to be such a leniency that a roiv, machzer, which is halachically a roiv, is not good enough. It has to be noticeable. So shchita, where the adi ikar rubalim is kasha, shchita, you need to go through roiv. So surely, like koshkin to be in your roiv, surely you should, you need it to be visible to be kosher. So Gemara said, you're right. We're totally wrong. This whole interpretation that argument machzer has to do with this, nothing to do with this. Nothing to do with treifas or shchit. You know what we're talking about here? About Pesach. The din by Pesach is that if the roiv of the tzibur are tamei, the first Pesach, then you bring tumah hutra b'tzibur. If it's not roiv, if it's a minority, they all get pushed off. Each get pushed off the Pesach sheni, and we'll learn next week's parsha. And not a roiv. What about machzer? And that's where they're arguing. I remember in Gemara Pesachim we had a whole thing there about if women are machzah and you combine them together. So I think ain't a karev. When it comes to shchit treif, not a roiv. The chidma, the rabbi candle, even Pesach chidma. So how in the world the Gemara thought to bring this machlekes to our Gemara here? How do you show you saw machzah tehid and machzah tmeim? It was exactly half and half. What happens then? Is Rava machzah's karev is like the majority of the people are tehidim, and therefore the tehidim will bring on their own. So what do you have two roivs here. You have a roiv to Ha'idim and a roiv to me. So the Ha'idim, because they're a roiv, so they'll bring a Pesach Rishon, but they have to maintain Tara. They got to be careful because you bring it out to Ha'idim. Roiv to main to Muhutra B'tzibur. So they bring also on Pesach Rishon. Even though we said before you can't have two roivs. Interesting.
Say,
That Papa's question there should come here as
the
well.
logistics are frightening here, but all the
They counted the people.
on a separate room. They can't come.
Maybe they remember they closed the door 3 times, so maybe one group was this and one group was
They
that.
can't brush past each other on the way.
Oh, no, yeah, don't look at each other, yeah. So nobody gets pushed off. And Rav Kahana says, no, machza, ain't a karoiv. And therefore, since the Tamain are not a roiv, because they're half, the Tamain all get pushed off to Pesach Sheni. And V'hosa my time of the Rab. What's talking this photo of Rab? If it's half and half, the Chesiv, it says, ish. Who gets pushed off? Only if you're individuals. Ki yitam nefesh. Ish nitche. Ain't tzibur nitche. Tzibur does not get nitche.
That's why we say
Yeah.
not good stuff. Isn't it? That when there's a row of the tzibur is tome, we say tumor hutz the tzibur.
Yeah.
You don't get hutz because I ain't tzibur nitche.
That's what I'm saying. That's what saying. But here, I don't understand why Papa's point is not brought up over here. I'll have to look it
I
up. See.
don't understand.
Anybody asked it?
We're taking a